Hello, stamping friends. It's Anne, the Stamp Maven, and we are here for Maven Monday. Thank you for joining me a little bit earlier tonight. If you are watching me on Facebook Live, I'll be turning my camera around in just a second and we'll be getting started. If you're watching me on YouTube, hey, I would love you to ring the little bell below and subscribe to my channel. I've been a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator for 20 years this year. I can't believe it. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to help you out. This weekend, I babysat my two youngest grandkids. I got a good night's sleep last night, so I am ready to roll. We're going to flip this camera around and get started here on what I have for you tonight. All right, let's see. All right, I'm going to turn off that one light while I am cutting. So this is the card that we're going to be working with first. I'm going to show you two fun fold cards tonight. They use the same fold, but they're different cards. So this fold is called the Z or the Z fold, depending on where you're watching me. I know in the UK they call it the Z fold. I'm not sure about Australia and the South Pacific, but here in the US, we refer to it as the Z fold. And you can see when you open this up, it makes a Z this way. If you're looking at it from this way, it's kind of a backward Z. So the way we're going to make the fold, what I love also about this card is we're going to use very few supplies. You know, a lot of my customers want to learn and make fancy folds, but they think, oh my gosh, I've got to have all this extra paper and supplies. No, you don't. You can just make this fun fold very easily. So I have got a piece of 8.5 by 11, and this is soft succulent cardstock. I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4, so I would have two pieces and I could make two cards. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score this. Make sure my cutting blade is out of the way. I'm going to score it at 5 1/2, and half of 5 1/2 is 2 3/4. So I'm going to score it at 2 3/4. Then I am just going to fold it in half. I'm going to give it a good burnish with my bone folder on my score line. Then the top part I'm going to fold back, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to burnish it. Now, let's say that maybe you don't have a paper trimmer. So you could so easily, let me get my other piece in. Whoops, I'm dropping things tonight. So here's that other half. We could fold this in half at 5 1/2, and then fold it, the front part, in half again by just matching it right up on that score line. And then just fold it back, give it another good burnish, and you've got your same card base. Okie dokie. So let's bring this one back in. Okay, here is my original. Now, what I am using tonight is the New Horizons Designer Paper Pack. I think I've showed you this before on one of my lives. This is just phenomenal paper. I liked it so much, I bought 2 packs of it. So let's cut the paper here for our front panel and the inside. Now, this is double-sided. I'm not going to show you the other side just yet because I want to just show you how I'm going to cut it. Now, I have my paper in a very particular way, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So, my left panel is going to be 4 by 2.5. So I'm going to flip it to make my 4 this way. And then I'm going to do my 2.5 here. And that is going to be my left panel on this card. Then this piece is going to be cut at 2 7/8. Now, I could start it from this side or this side. I'm going to just live dangerously and just do it like this. Okay, now, I have got my 2 pieces here, right? Now, look at what is on the back. If I had cut it another way, I wouldn't have this cool piece here. And I'm going to show you why in a minute on another card. So, I'm going to use my liquid glue, and I'm going to go ahead and put this down here. And I knew I was going to be making another card, so I wanted to make sure that I had 2 pieces of this. Okay, so there is, let me bring the original in. Okay, so there are my designer series paper pieces. Now, if you know, we scored this at 5.5. So when I put this piece here, which, well, that means that if you measure, if I can find my little ruler here, so if you come out here the 1/8 of an inch and you measure it, that means that it's 3 1/8 inch from here to here. So then you've got, since it's 5.5, right, you would have 2 1/4 left for your little white piece on the inside right here. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Then on this side, I've got my left panel is 4 by 2.5. So what's left is 2 3/4. So then if I have an 1/8 inch of a border on each side, this piece needs to be 2 1/4 on your inside. What you could do, and let me show you a little trick that might even make it a little easier for you. Let me bring in my cutter again. Okay, so we know that the length of our card is going to be 4 inches, right? Because this measurement here is 4 1/4. We started out 5.5 by 4 1/4. So if I want to leave an 1/8 of an inch border on the top and bottom, then that means this measurement of all these pieces here is 4. Okay, so this again was 2.5, right? So then we figured out that we need 2.5 on this piece too, because each, let me see, explain this. Sorry, I bet I'm confusing you. When you take 5.5 and you divide it in half, you get 2 3/4. So then to leave your 1/8 of an inch border all the way around, it would need to be 2 1/4. So if I start out with 5 1/4, okay, which would be the size piece if you were just putting one piece on the inside, right? Does that make sense? The inside of your card would be 5 1/4 by 4. So if I start out with that piece and then I'm going to cut it to 2.5 for this piece right here, and then 2 1/4 left from our piece over here. So now I've got my white pieces here, just like I did here. The reason I'm putting my white pieces here is because I need to have room to write on the inside. So let me stick these down and get my glue. And I wonder sometimes why I end up with glue on my trimmer. Well, this is why. Because I just go ahead and glue wherever I am. And so sometimes I get glue on there, which is not a problem because I just take my rubbing alcohol and I get it off. Okay, so there's our inside. So over here, what I did was, for the front, I took 2 of my circle dies from my layering circles, and I wanted 2 that basically, one was smaller to fit inside, so there was a little bit of a border. So that's what I ended up with here, like that. And when I put that on, I only put my adhesive on the left side. Let's do that. Okay, so I put it on the left side so it would open. Of course, if you put it over here, you would glue it down, and that would probably give your recipient a little surprise that you didn't intend for them to have. And then I just put this one here and then stamp a greeting here. But what I wanted to show you, the kitchen sink stamping part. Notice this little, it's like a stamp. It's got similar colors to what my DSP had, and it just fit with this almost like plants right here. And this kind of reminded me of a sky and mountain. Then, of course, I got a button. Well, I have a ton of this kind of stuff, and I'm going to show you one on one of my second cards. My friend Chris Jones has a business, and it's called Village Artiates. She's on Instagram, and she sells vintage ephemera. She sent me a pack of all this kind of stuff. Isn't this cool? We girls. Oh, did I deal? I mean, it's just fun stuff. Here's a little stamp with a skier, and then you just work all this stuff into your cards. There's a stamp in here that's got Elvis's picture on it. So I'm sure I've got a friend somewhere that, here it is, that loves Elvis. So I will use that on a card. And you must know by now, if you've stamped with me, I am the button queen. Can you see this bucket here? This is full of all sorts of different buttons. Let me just pull out a few of them here. I've got Mickey Mouse buttons. I've got flowers. I've got hearts. I have them separated by colors. People give them to me. I must have 10,000 buttons at least. I have some in my attic. But my trademark kind of is doing this kitchen sink stamping and using buttons. So this, guys, is what? A half a sheet of cardstock, scraps of white, and then our designer series paper. Now, let me show you the second fold. The second card, I should say. It's the exact same fold. Can you see that? The only difference is I scored it in half. I scored it at 2 3/4. But instead of folding it back, I folded it in and I made it an easel card. Now, this is what I wanted to show you here. I've got, here was the piece we used on the other card. Here is the back. Look at that. This piece fit perfectly on my card. This reminds me so much of a peaceful meadow. These birds were not on this paper, but the stamp set and the dies that are a part of this suite in the new 2021-2022 mini catalog has these birds. So all I did was, the measurements are exactly the same on the outside of this card, and then the inside is just the 4 by 5 1/4. I stamped the breathe from the same stamp set and the birds. This looks like mountains and again a peaceful meadow. This part is just put on with some dimensionals, so when I mail this to someone, they'll be able to just keep it on their desk like this, and I'll sign my name here, but it'll go flat just right into an envelope. Oh my gosh, I just think that is the coolest thing ever. And if you look at some of these other pieces, doesn't this remind you of mountains? Here's a little lake and maybe a reflection. Same thing with this paper. And if you turn it over, you've just got your petal pink here. Actually, that's pale papaya. And then on this side, we've got our evening evergreen. Now, stick with me here a minute because I want to bring in another card that I made using this fold. Ta-da! Okay, on this one, I didn't use designer series paper. Maybe you are just a newbie crafter, or maybe you've been crafting a long time and you just don't either choose to spend a lot of money or have a lot of money. Well, guys, you can still make fun cards. And let me show you a couple of things about this one. I'm going to show you first how I did this background. Okay, I took my ink pad, again, soft succulent, and are you familiar with the direct to paper technique? So let me just get a scrap paper here, and we are just going to swipe down on here. Direct to paper. Whoops, I didn't get that locked in, but that's okay. My goodness, come on here, Ann. Let's turn it over. And swiping it this way. Okay, so that is going to make an even different background than this. But now, wait. You know, do you ever watch that channel? I guess it's Home Shopping or something, and they've got all this stuff, and they go, but wait. Well, that's my but wait moment. I'm going to come back in with my evening evergreen, and I'm going to swipe the other way. And voila, look at that. Isn't that the coolest thing? And if you want, you can even tap some gold flecks in this. If you've got like a gold ink pen, you can, let's see, I don't have my alcohol out in front of me, but when this stays kind of wet, you can take, let me grab it here. You can take one of our Stampin' Spritzers and you can fill it with alcohol and just mist. Now, I'm using water here, but can you see where it's kind of made some little splotches? If you use alcohol, oh my goodness, it will just give you kind of a background that just is splotchy, for lack of a better term. Then, if you wanted to, you could even come in, see here how my little card here, my tag, and I'm going to show you about that in a second, has some other colors in there. If you wanted to, you could take, let's try Coastal Cabana and see what that looks like. I haven't done this, but hey, let's give it a whirl. Okay, so you could add that on there and just see that even gives you a totally different look. Brings out different colors in that. Now, this is really fun. Okay, so back to kitchen sink stamping. This card actually was something that Chris included in that little envelope of stuff. Well, I was so excited when I got this. This card is Mount Hindman overlooking Stanley Lake near Sun Valley, Idaho. Well, some of you who have stamped with me for a while probably know that I lost my brother in 2020, my only sibling, to a massive sudden heart attack. Well, he and his family have lived in Idaho for many years, and his widow and her two boys, who are young adults, they still live there. So I am making this card for my sister-in-law. So I got a little teeny piece of white cardstock and one of my stamps that said hello. Then I took the Beauty of Friendship stamp set, which has this sort of bare tree, and then you can fill it in. So I stamped the tree right here to kind of mirror this tree here. It's not exactly the same, but I loved it. Then I looked in my button stash, found a button that matched, and put some twine on there. Look how easy that is. I did a whole class on kitchen sink stamping probably a year and a half ago online, and I still have that class available. I'm going to have to put the link out there, so if you maybe want to find out a little bit more about kitchen sink stamping, you can check that out. Well, thank you so much for joining an hour earlier. Next week, I should be back at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to have 2 more cards kind of using this same method. So thanks for watching, and I will see y'all real soon. Bye-bye.